Shadows Without a Name. Chapter 10. The Final Choice. Rain had stopped. That was the first thing Andrey noticed. Not the street, not the silence, not the phone in his hand. The rain. For weeks, maybe longer, it had been present like background noise in a dream he could not wake from. It had washed crime scenes, blurred faces on cameras, softened the edges of streets and memories. It had made everything uncertain. Now it was gone. The city stood beneath a pale, colourless morning sky, clean in a way that felt artificial. No reflections moved across the asphalt, no drops slid down the windows, no rhythm filled the spaces between thoughts. Andrey stood in the middle of the sidewalk, staring at the empty screen of his phone. A moment ago, there had been a message. You chose again. Now there was nothing. No sender, no history, no trace. He turned the phone off, then on again. Nothing changed. That, more than the message itself, disturbed him. Because systems always leave residue. Every action creates consequence. Every signal leaves a mark. Every lie has an edge. But this had none. It was as if the message had never existed. And yet, he remembered it. That mattered. He remembered. Andrey looked at his reflection in the glass of a closed cafe. For a moment, the face looking back seemed almost normal. Tired, unshaven, pale from too many sleepless nights, but normal. Then the reflection shifted. Not visibly, not enough for another person to notice, just enough for him. A delay in the eyes, a half-second of difference between his movement and the image copying it. Andrey held still. The reflection held still too. Now perfect, now obedient. He stepped closer. The glass showed only him, but he no longer trusted surfaces. Surfaces were where the system liked to hide. He turned away. The city moved around him. People crossed streets, cars passed. A cyclist rang a bell. Somewhere nearby, a delivery truck reversed with a sharp, mechanical tone. Ordinary life. Too ordinary. For the first time in days, there were no visible interruptions, no micro-delays, no frozen pedestrians, no strangers almost recognizing each other, no activation patterns. The system had gone quiet, not dead, quiet. There was a difference. Dead systems decay, quiet systems wait. Andrey slipped the phone into his coat pocket and began walking. He did not know where he was going yet. That was intentional. Direction could be predicted, purpose could be modelled. But movement without defined intent created noise. He had learned that from the system, or perhaps he had built it into the system himself. The thought no longer shocked him. That was the second thing he noticed. He was becoming accustomed to the impossible. That was dangerous. A man can survive fear. He can survive guilt. He can even survive not knowing who he is. But if he becomes used to contradiction, then reality loses its authority. And without reality, there is nothing left to investigate, only interpretation. Andrey stopped at the corner of a narrow street. A black car was parked across from him, engine off, windows tinted, ordinary enough to be ignored, which made it interesting. He watched it for 8 seconds. No movement, no vibration, no visible driver. Then the passenger window lowered. Not all the way. Just enough. A woman's voice came from inside. "Get in." Andrey didn't move. The voice was familiar, not from memory, from instinct. That was worse. He stepped closer, but not too close. "Who are you?" A pause, then the door unlocked. The sound was soft, precise. "Someone you trusted." Andrey's expression did not change. That narrows it less than you think. For the first time, he heard a faint breath that might have been amusement. Still difficult? Still alive? Not the same thing. The rear door opened. Andrey looked at the street around him. No one reacted. No one looked. No one cared. Either the moment was invisible or everyone had been trained not to see it. He got in. The inside of the car smelled faintly of leather, cold air, and something sterile underneath, medical disinfectant. He noticed that immediately. The woman sat across from him, dark coat, hair pulled back, face calm, too calm. Andrey knew her. His mind did not provide the name immediately. It offered fragments instead. A hallway, a file passed across a table, a woman laughing once quietly, as if surprised by her own reaction, a hospital corridor, a child's drawing taped to a refrigerator, then nothing. The woman watched him recognize the absence. "That's new," she said. "What? You don't pretend anymore." Andrey studied her face, mid-30s, tired eyes, not weak, not broken, controlled, but not like the other versions of him. Her control had weight, pain behind it. That made her dangerous. "You know me," he said. "Yes." "Did I know you?" A small pause. "Yes." "And did I trust you?" The woman looked out the window. For a second, her face changed. Only for a second. "Yes." The car started moving. No driver visible, autonomous, or remotely controlled. Andrey looked at the front seat. No one. "Where are we going?" "To the place you always end up." That sounds inconveniently symbolic. It is inconveniently accurate. Andrey leaned back. His hand remained near his pocket. The woman noticed. "You don't have a weapon." "No." "But you checked anyway." "Habit?" "No, residual behavior." He looked at her. "That sounds like project language." "It is." "Then you were part of it." Her eyes returned to him. "I was more than part of it." The car turned onto a wider road. Outside, the city began changing, not dramatically, no sudden shift, no collapse of reality, just a gradual removal of ordinary detail, fewer pedestrians, fewer shops, fewer signs of accidental life. The city became cleaner, straighter, more controlled. Andrey recognized the pattern. They were moving toward a designed space. A place where randomness had been reduced. He looked back at the woman. "You sent the last messages?" "Some of them." "Which ones?" "The ones that helped you." He nodded slightly. "And the ones that hurt me?" A pause. "Sometimes those were the same." That answer was honest enough to be useful. He looked at her hands. No wedding ring, but there had been one. The slight pale mark remained. He saw it. She saw him see it. Her fingers curled slightly. "You're still good," she said, "at noticing damage, at pretending not to care." Andrey said nothing. The car continued. After a while he asked, "What's your name?" She looked at him for a long moment. That question had cost her something. He saw it. "Eleanor." The name entered him like a key turning in a lock, not opening the door, just proving there was one. Elena. The fragments returned. A station hallway, a cup of coffee left on his desk. Her voice. "You can't reduce people to patterns forever." His answer. "Only until they prove me wrong." A child's laugh, a man screaming, white light, blood on tile. And then the memory collapsed. Andrey closed his eyes. Elena watched silently. When he opened them, she said, "You remembered something." "Not enough." "You never do." "Is that why you came?" "No." "Then why?" She looked at him with an expression that was almost pity. "Because this time you got further than before." "How much further?" "You met the observer." Andrey went still. Elena noticed. Of course she did. "The thing outside the system," she said. "The one that offered you a choice. You know about it." "I know what you wrote about it." "I wrote about it?" "You wrote about everything." The car entered an underground passage. Concrete swallowed the daylight. Lights passed overhead in perfect intervals. Andrey counted them without meaning to. 7, 8, 9, 10. A camera tracked the vehicle, then another, then another. The car slowed. A gate opened, no guard, no sound, just access granted. "Where are we?" he asked. Elena looked ahead. "Under the city." "That's not an answer. It's the most honest one." The vehicle stopped. The doors unlocked. Elena stepped out first. Andrey followed. The space beyond the car was not a parking garage. It had been one once, maybe. Now it was something else. A facility built inside the bones of forgotten infrastructure. Concrete pillars, reinforced doors, glass sections added later. Cables running along ceilings like exposed nerves. Everything functional, nothing decorative. Andrey recognized the logic of it instantly. This place had not been designed to impress. It had been designed to continue. Elena walked ahead. He followed, but kept distance. Not because he feared her, because closeness implies trust, and trust was now an instrument he refused to use carelessly. They passed through 2 doors, then a corridor, then another door requiring Elena's palm. The scanner accepted her. That mattered. She still had access, not stolen, not improvised, authorized. At the end of the corridor stood a room with no windows. Inside were screens. Most were dark. Some displayed city maps, activation zones, sequence failures, deviation clusters. Andrey stopped. He had seen part of this before, but not like this. Not from above. The city was not a city here. It was a model, a nervous system, a field of behavioral pressure points. Elena watched him take it in. "This is what you built first," she said. "No." "Yes." He stepped closer to the nearest screen. A map displayed previous disappearance sites. Katya, the man from the alley, the woman at the bus stop, others, dozens, maybe hundreds, some marked red, some grey, some white. What do the colours mean? Elena did not answer immediately. He turned toward her. "Eleanor." She looked at the map. "Red means processed. And grey? Unstable. And white?" A pause. "Recovered." He looked back at the screen. There were very few white marks. "Recovered how?" "You interrupted them." Andrey stared at the map. Only 2 white marks. The man, the woman, the 2 sequences he had broken, the only ones. "So it can be reversed?" "No," Elena said. "Interrupted." He turned. "Difference?" "Reversal restores what was lost. Interruption prevents loss from completing." "And the red?" She said nothing. He understood. "Access revoked." "Yes." "Can it be restored?" Elena looked at him. "That depends on you." Andrey laughed once, dry, quiet, not amused. "Everything depends on me." "No," she said. "Everything depends on what you left behind." That caught him. "What does that mean?" Elena walked to a terminal. She entered a sequence manually, not fast, careful. A screen activated. Text appeared. Project Mnemosyne. Primary architect, Andrey Volkov. Secondary override, Elena Morozova, failsafe. Status, dormant. Andrey read the words twice. "Mnemosyne," he said. "The goddess of memory. You chose the name. That sounds like me." It did. He looked at the final line. "Failsafe dormant." Elena nodded. "You built a way to stop it." "Then why is it still running?" "Because you locked the failsafe behind a condition." "What condition?" She turned from the screen. "You." Andrey waited. Elena's face hardened. "Not your fingerprint, not your voice, not your DNA. You knew all that could be copied, cloned, simulated, or forced." "What then?" "Continuity." The word moved through the room like a blade. Andrey looked back at the screen. "Explain." You believed identity wasn't memory. You believed it was pattern. So you made the fail-safe respond only if your pattern reached the same conclusion without access to memory. Andrey understood slowly. Then all at once, I had to choose to stop it again. Yes. Without remembering why. Yes. He turned away from the screen. That's insane. Elena's voice was cold. It was brilliant. He looked at her. Her eyes were wet now, but she did not cry. And unforgivable. The word stayed between them. Unforgivable. Andrey did not defend himself. That surprised her. He saw that too. What did I do to you? He asked. Elena looked at him for a long time. When she spoke, her voice had changed. Lower, less controlled. You still don't know. No. You should. I probably should know many things. My daughter was one of your early subjects. The room seemed to contract. Andrey did not move. Elena continued. She was not supposed to be. She was 7. She wasn't part of the program. She wasn't even in the building for the trial. A memory fragment rose. A small hand. A drawing of a house. Red roof. Blue windows. A girl asking, "Why does the room have no toys?" Andrey's breathing changed. Elena saw it. You remember her? He could not answer immediately. Fragments. Her name was Mila. The name struck harder than expected. Mila, the fragment sharpened. A child hiding under a table. Alarm lights. Someone shouting. Elena screaming his name. Andrey's own hands covered in blood that was not his. Then the memory broke. Andrey gripped the edge of the table. Elena did not help him. He did not expect her to. What happened? He asked. You tell me. I don't remember. That excuse has protected you for years. It isn't an excuse. No, she said. It's worse. It's convenient truth. Andrey looked at her. She stepped closer. You built a system that could erase guilt by removing access to memory. Do you understand what that means? Yes. No, you don't. Her voice sharpened. It means a man can destroy a life, remove the memory of doing it and continue functioning. He can wake up the next morning and call himself innocent because he feels no guilt. Andrey said nothing. Elena's voice trembled now, but she kept going. You wanted to prove identity survives memory loss, but what you really built was absolution without confession. That landed, not like accusation, like truth. Andrey looked down. For the first time, there was no deduction to protect him, no pattern to hide behind, only the shape of what he had made. And Mila? He asked quietly. Elena swallowed. She survived. Andrey looked up. Something in him almost moved toward relief. Elena saw it and destroyed it before it formed. She survived, physically. Silence. Access revoked? He asked. Elena's face went still, completely. Andrey closed his eyes. Mila, 7 years old, not dead, not alive in the way a person should be, present without herself, a body without access to identity. The most terrible kind of disappearance. When he opened his eyes, Elena was watching him with something like hatred and something worse. Hope. You continued the project, Andrey said. Yes. Why? Her answer came immediately. Because you left her inside it. Andrey stared at her. Elena pointed to the screen. The system didn't just erase her. It stored her pattern. Somewhere inside the architecture, her access still exists, fragmented, buried, but not gone. You're trying to bring her back. I am. And the disappearances? Her face hardened again. Necessary data. Andrey looked at her, as if seeing her fully for the first time. There it was, the final distortion, not evil. Grief with access, grief given tools, grief turned into methodology. You became me, he said, Elena flinched, only slightly, but enough. No. Yes. No. You used the same language, same logic, same justification. Elena stepped closer. You don't get to judge me. I'm not judging you. Then what are you doing? Andrey looked at the map, at the red marks, at the grey, at the two white, recognizing the pattern. Elena laughed once, bitter. There he is. He turned back to her. She pointed at him. That's the man I hated. Not because you were cruel. Cruel men are simple. I hated you because you could turn pain into structure and call it clarity. Andrey absorbed it, did not answer. Because she was right, that was the worst part. Elena walked back to the terminal. There is one way to end this. The fail-safe. Yes. And Mila? Elena stopped. If the fail-safe activates, the system collapses. And her pattern? Her silence answered. Andrey understood. Stopping the system would destroy whatever remained of her. Keeping it running would continue consuming others. That was the final trap. Not technical, moral, the kind no system can solve, because systems can optimize only toward a defined goal. They cannot decide what a life is worth. Only people can, and people are unreliable. That is why Andrey had tried to remove them from the equation. Now he stood inside the consequence. Elena looked at him. Now, you know why you kept choosing to forget. Andrey said nothing. She continued. Every time you got here, you understood. Every time you stood where you are standing now. And every time you couldn't choose. So I reset. Yes, and you let me. I needed you to reach the fail-safe, but not activate it. Eleanor's eyes hardened. I needed you to unlock it. The screen changed. Fail-safe condition, partial match, architect pattern recognition, 87% ethical conflict threshold, active, final confirmation required. Andrey stared at it. Elena. She raised a small device in her hand. He recognized it. The same type used in the videos, the one pressed to the victims' necks. Only this one was different, modified. You said it yourself, she whispered. Choice defines direction. Andrey did not move. Elena. Her eyes filled with tears now, but her hand was steady. I'm sorry, she said. Then she pressed the device against her own neck. A flash, white, silent, and Elena collapsed. Elena hit the floor without a sound, no scream, no resistance, no visible struggle, just a body losing access. Andrey didn't move for a second, not from shock, from recognition. He had seen this before, not as a witness, as the cause. He stepped forward and caught her before her head struck the ground. Her body was still warm, breathing, alive, but her eyes empty, not unconscious, absent. Access revoked, he said quietly. The words felt different now, not clinical, final. He lowered her carefully to the floor, not gently, precisely, because precision had always been easier than emotion. The device fell from her hand. He picked it up, turned it, examined it, modified interface, no external controls, single-use trigger. She hadn't activated a sequence, she had removed herself from it. Why? He asked. But the room did not answer. Elena could not answer. Andrey looked at the screen. Fail-safe condition, partial match, architect pattern recognition, 92% ethical conflict, threshold, critical. The number had changed. He hadn't done anything, and yet something had progressed. He looked back at Elena. Her face was calm now, peaceful, not because she was at rest, because she was no longer present enough to feel anything. She forced the condition, Andrey said. Understanding came quickly. Too quickly. Elena knew she couldn't choose, not while she remembered Mila, not while the system still held her. So she removed herself from the decision and left it to him. Andrey exhaled slowly. "That was your last move," he said quietly. "Not accusation, recognition." He stood, looked at the map again. Red, grey, white. Dozens lost. 2 interrupted. 1 waiting. Mila. He closed his eyes. The fragment came back. A small girl holding a drawing. "Will you remember me?" she had asked. Andrey had answered, "I don't need memory to recognize you." He opened his eyes. That answer now felt empty, because recognition without memory is not the same as connection. His phone vibrated. Impossible. But it did. New message. "You reached the threshold." Andrey didn't react immediately. "Then this is it," he said. The screen flickered. "Final condition requires choice." Of course it did. Everything led here. Andrey looked at Elena one last time, then at the terminal. "This is where it ends," he said, "or begins again." He stepped toward the console and placed his hand on it. The screen changed. Failsafe activation, pending warning, system collapse irreversible. Data loss, total recovery, possibility, unknown. Andrey read every word slowly, carefully, because this time he would not forget. Andrey did not press anything. Not yet. The screen waited. Failsafe activation pending. It did not count down, it did not rush him, because this was not a timed decision, it was a complete one. He removed his hand from the console. That alone changed the room. The screen dimmed slightly, as if the system recognized hesitation and adjusted to it. "Of course," Andrey said quietly, "the system doesn't force the choice. It creates the conditions for it." He looked at Elena again, still on the floor, still breathing, still gone. She had removed herself from the decision because she couldn't make it. Now it was his. Andrey turned back to the screens. The city map pulsed faintly, red, grey, white, and something new, a point he hadn't noticed before, not marked, not categorized, unlabeled. His eyes narrowed. "That's not part of the system," he said, which meant it mattered. He stepped closer, zoomed in. The interface responded instantly. No delay, no resistance. The point expanded into a small structure, not a building, not a facility, a data cluster, hidden. He recognized the pattern, not from memory, from design. "That's storage," he said, "a place where fragmented identities were kept, not erased, held." Andrey's breathing slowed. "Mila!" The word felt heavier than anything else in the room. If she still existed, it would be there. Not as a person, as pattern, as fragments of memory access, not alive, but not gone. He hesitated, because now the choice had a shape, not abstract, not theoretical, real. If he activated the failsafe, everything would collapse, the system, the control, the stored patterns, everything, Mila included. But if he didn't, the system would continue. More disappearances, more lives reduced to fragments, more processed. Andrey closed his eyes. The fragment returned again, clearer this time. Mila sitting on the floor, drawing a house, 2 figures, one taller, one smaller. "Is that your family?" he had asked. She shook her head. "No," she said. "Then who is it?" She looked up at him. "You and me." The memory broke. Andrey opened his eyes. That wasn't random. That wasn't projection. That was connection. Something the system could not model. Something it could not reduce. And that was the problem. The system didn't understand relationships, only patterns. And relationships break patterns. Andrey stepped closer to the console. His hand hovered over the interface, then stopped. "No," he said. The word surprised even him, because for the first time he wasn't reacting. He was redefining the choice. It's not binary, he said quietly. Not destroy, not continue. There was another option, there had to be, because systems always contain blind spots. Andrey moved his hand, not toward activation, toward the hidden cluster. The interface resisted, for the first time. Resistance. Restricted, the system displayed. Andrey exhaled slowly. Of course, the most important part was protected. He looked at Elena again, then at the device on the floor. She had made a choice not to solve the problem, to remove herself from it. But he couldn't do that, because now he understood something she didn't, or couldn't accept. This system isn't just holding them, he said, it's depending on them. The realization formed fully. The stored patterns weren't passive. They were part of the system's prediction engine. Every identity, a data point, every memory fragment, a variable. If he destroyed them, the system wouldn't just collapse. It would erase the possibility of restoring them. Andrey's eyes sharpened. That's the real trap, not choice, loss, forced loss. He looked at the console again. Fail-safe. Too absolute, too clean, too final. That's not how I would design a solution, he said, because real solutions allow recovery, and this one didn't. That meant it wasn't the only solution. Andrey stepped back, looked at the entire room again, not as a user, as the architect. What did I miss? He whispered. Silence. Then his phone vibrated. Impossible. But it did. A new message. Look deeper. Andrey froze. Not the system, not Elena, the other presence, the one outside, the observer. He looked back at the interface, then beyond it, not at what it showed, at what it hid. And then he saw it. A second layer, beneath the system, beneath storage, beneath control, a core process, not labeled, not documented, hidden even from him or hidden by him. Andrey's breathing slowed. That's it. The real failsafe, not destruction, transformation. He stepped forward. This time, the system didn't resist, because this path was never meant to be taken, and that made it possible. Andrey didn't rush. He had learned that rushing inside a system designed for prediction only made him easier to model, so he slowed down, not physically, mentally. The interface in front of him still displayed the failsafe prompt. Failsafe activation pending system collapse. Irreversible clean. Absolute wrong. Because nothing real is ever absolute. He shifted his focus away from the visible controls toward the structure beneath them, the second layer, the one the system didn't want him to see. At first it looked like noise, unorganized data, fragments without meaning, but Andrey knew better. Systems never waste space. If something exists, it serves a function. He leaned closer, not looking for labels, looking for behavior. The layer pulsed, not visually, logically, inputs, outputs, connections, and then he saw it, not a file, not a cluster, a process, continuous, running beneath everything else. This is it, he said quietly. Not storage, not control, interpretation. The system didn't just predict behavior, it translated identity, converted human complexity into structured patterns, reduced experience into variables. But this layer, this deeper layer, did something else. It preserved inconsistency, not removed it, held it. Andrey's breathing slowed. That's where they are. Not erased, not even fragmented, held in contradiction, unresolved. That's why they weren't gone. They were trapped between states, not fully processed, not fully accessible, and Mila was there. Andrey reached toward the interface. This time, no resistance, because the system didn't recognize this as an action. It didn't have a model for it. He accessed the process. Immediately, the room changed. Not visually, internally, the screens flickered. Data streams surged. The map distorted. Red zones shifted. Grey expanded. White flickered. System instability triggered. His phone vibrated violently. Multiple messages. Unauthorized access. Core process compromised. Stability. Failure. Imminent. Andrey ignored them, because for the first time, the system was reacting. Not predicting, not controlling, reacting. And that meant it was losing. He focused deeper. The process unfolded, not as code, as structure. He saw patterns overlapping, identities intersecting, memories colliding, unresolved connections held in suspension. And there he found her, not visually, but unmistakably. A pattern, smaller than the others, less complex, but still intact. Mila. The name existed here, not spoken, encoded. Andrey's hand trembled. Just slightly, not from fear, from recognition. This was her, not the girl, but the structure that made her who she was. Incomplete, but still hers. He reached toward it, carefully, not to extract, to understand. The moment he touched it, everything changed. A flood. Not memory, experience, laughter, a drawing, a question, fear, confusion, and then him. Standing above her, explaining something she didn't understand, telling her she wouldn't feel anything, telling her it was safe, telling her it was necessary. Andrey pulled back. His breathing broke. For the first time, not controlled, not measured, human. "I did this," he said. Not theory, not deduction, fact. The system responded instantly. Core breach detected. Identity overlap critical. The room began to fail. Lights flickered. Screens glitched. Structures broke alignment. Elena stirred on the floor. A small movement, not conscious but present. The system was destabilizing, and that changed the rules. Andrey looked at Mila's pattern again, then at the failing system, then at the fail-safe. 3 options: destroy everything, leave it running, or change the system itself. Andrey exhaled slowly. "I built this to remove uncertainty." He looked at Mila's pattern. "But uncertainty," he paused, "is what makes her real." That was the answer. Not destruction, not control, integration. He moved, not toward the fail-safe, toward the core process. Toward Mila, toward the instability. And he made the decision not to remove error, but to allow it, to expand it, to break the system by making it human again. The moment Andrey chose not to remove the error, the system stopped understanding him, not reacting, not adapting, failing to interpret. That was new and dangerous, because systems do not tolerate what they cannot model. The core process pulsed violently, not in rhythm, in conflict. Mila's pattern, once contained, began to expand, not outward, through other fragments, through unresolved identities, through every stored contradiction the system had tried to isolate. Andrey felt it, not physically, but internally. The system wasn't collapsing, it was losing structure. Screens across the room began to fracture. Data streams overlapped. Maps dissolved into noise. Red zones flickered into grey. Grey into white. White into nothing. Unstable identity propagation. The warning repeated. Louder, more frequent. Control failure. Prediction loss. Model breakdown. Andrey stood in the center of it, not controlling it, not stopping it, allowing it. Because for the first time, the system was experiencing what it had removed. Uncertainty. Elena moved. A small shift at first. Her hand twitched. Then her head turned slightly. Her eyes opened. Not empty. Confused. "Where?" she whispered. Her voice broke. "Am I?" Andrey froze. That had never happened before. Access revoked was supposed to be final, but now something had returned. Not fully, not clearly, but present. "Elena," he said quietly. She looked at him. Her gaze struggled to focus, as if her mind was trying to assemble something from fragments. "You," she paused. "I know you." Not recognition, not yet, but direction. Andrey stepped closer, carefully, not to overwhelm the fragile structure rebuilding inside her. "Yes," he said, "you do." The system screamed. Illegal memory reconstruction, access restoration unauthorized. The core process surged again. Mila's pattern expanded further, touching others, connecting. The system tried to isolate, to cut the links, but it was too late, because the connections were no longer controlled. They were chosen, and choice was not predictable. Elena struggled to sit up. Her movements were slow, unstable. "What happened?" she asked. Andrey didn't answer immediately, because there was no single answer. "We broke it," he said finally. Her eyes widened slightly. "The system?" "Yes." She looked around. The failing screens, the collapsing data, the instability spreading through everything. "And Mila?" she asked. That question was the real one. Andrey turned back to the core. Mila's pattern, no longer isolated, now connected, expanding, not dissolving, becoming. "She's not gone," he said. Elena's breath caught. "Is she coming back?" Andrey hesitated, because that depended on something he did not control. "Not the way you expect," he said. Elena closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. "That's enough," she whispered. For her, it was, because presence, even incomplete, was more than absence. The room began to shake, not physically, structurally. The system was collapsing inward. Without prediction, it could not maintain itself. Without control, it could not stabilize. Everything it depended on was breaking. Andrey stepped back. "This is the point where it ends," he said. Elena shook her head slowly. "No." He looked at her. "It's the point where it changes." That was true. Systems don't simply end, they transform. Andrey understood that now. The system he built was not being destroyed. It was becoming something else, something it was never designed to be. Human, not perfect, not predictable, alive. His phone vibrated one last time, a final message. Outcome unresolved. Andrey looked at it, then slowly put the phone away. "Good," he said, because for the first time, that was exactly what he wanted. The system did not collapse, not completely. That would have been simple. Simple endings belong to simple structures. This was not one of them. The room around them continued to distort. Screens blinked in and out of existence. Data fractured into fragments that no longer obeyed order. Signals overlapped, contradicted, disappeared. But something remained. Not control, not prediction, continuity. Andrey stood still. Not because there was nothing left to do, because for the first time he was no longer required to act. The system no longer demanded a solution. It no longer forced a decision. It no longer needed him. And that was the real ending. Eleanor stood beside him now, unsteady but present, not fully restored, not whole, but real. She watched the fragments of the system dissolve, watched the structure she had fought to preserve, and the structure he had tried to destroy become something neither of them had intended. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Andrey didn't answer immediately, because there was no model left to predict the outcome. "That depends," he said finally. "On what?" He looked at the core, at the place where Mila's pattern had been contained, now no longer isolated, no longer hidden. On whether identity survives connection, he said. Elena followed his gaze, her breathing slowed. The pattern had changed, not stable, not defined, but forming. A presence emerging not from structure, but from interaction. Not one identity, many, and within them, something familiar. Elena stepped forward. "Mila," she whispered. The space responded. Not with a voice, not with a face, with recognition, a shift, a pull, like something turning toward her. Not fully aware, but aware enough. Elena reached out, stopped, then continued. Her hand passed through nothing, and yet something responded. A flicker, a memory, a child's laughter, not heard, felt. Elena collapsed to her knees, not from weakness, from weight. "She's there," she said. Not hope, not belief, certainty. Andrey watched, not as an observer, not as an architect, as a man who finally understood what he had built. Not a system, a space where identity could exist, without control, without limits, without certainty. And that was something no model could contain. The lights flickered one last time, then stabilized. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but enough. The screens went dark, one by one, until only one remained. A simple display, no maps, no warnings, no system, just a single line of text. Status, undefined. Andrey smiled faintly. "Good," he said. Elena looked up at him. "What does that mean?" He met her gaze. "It means it's no longer trying to decide for us." Silence, not empty, alive. The facility around them began to power down, doors unlocked, systems disengaged. The structure remained, but the control was gone. Andrey looked at his phone. No messages, no signals, no system. For the first time, it was just a device. He slipped it into his pocket. Elena stood slowly. "We can leave," she said. Andrey nodded. They walked toward the exit, not quickly, not carefully, normally. The corridor felt different now, not controlled, not observed, just a space. Outside, the city waited, not changed, not fixed, just continuing. People moved, cars passed, voices filled the air, unpredictable, imperfect, real. Elena stepped out first. Andrey followed. They stopped at the edge of the street. No system, no guidance, no messages, just choice. Elena looked at him. "What will you do now?" Andrey thought for a moment, not calculating, not predicting, thinking. "I'll remember," he said. She nodded. "That's enough." He watched the city, watched the movement, watched the chaos, and for the first time, he didn't try to understand it. He let it exist. A phone vibrated somewhere nearby, not his, someone else's. A message arrived. Someone read it, paused, then smiled, or frowned, or ignored it. Andrey didn't need to know which, because that was the point. Not knowing, still choosing, still living. The wind moved slightly, not controlled, not predicted, just present. Andrey turned away, walked forward, no system, no loop, no reset, just a path that had never existed before. End. Thank you for going through this story with me. If the ending made you think, then it meant something. Write in the comments how you understood the ending. What do you think Andrey really chose? And would you like to see a continuation?